data will ultimately become the most valuable product. So the opportunity for medtech organizations is to move outside their traditional comfort zone of manufacturing and selling devices to creating new business models that capitalize on data. Devices are increasingly being designed to include interoperability and secure connectivity. These capabilities will drive medtech companies to be more relevant and more relevant to support responsive offerings that deliver better interventions and care management.
Welcome to the Life Sciences Leadership Podcast, where we delve deep into the life sciences industry and uncover effective strategies, innovations, and future trends. Your host, Axtria's Jasmeet Soni, engages highly acclaimed leaders in discussions focused on directing commercial success in the life sciences industry. Whether you're transforming your commercial success strategy or just craving dynamic discussion, this is the show for you.
Hello everyone, I'm your host Jasmeet Soni and welcome to the Life Sciences Leadership Podcast brought to you by Axtria. Our goal with this show is to bring to you effective strategies, innovations, and most importantly, people who are driving improved business and patient outcomes within the life sciences industry. We have another amazing leader as a guest today, but before I introduce her, I want to take this opportunity to thank all the people who have been critical to the success of the show. Starting with all the wonderful guest leaders who have shared their valuable knowledge and expertise, the behind-the-scenes team that is helping produce and promote the show, and most importantly, the audience. Your love and support has made the show the topmost in the life sciences industry. Thank you. Now on to today's conversation. I'm excited to introduce a very dynamic leader, Rita Sharma. Rita is the General Manager and Vice President of International Growth for Healthcare and Life Sciences at Salesforce. Previously, she was Vice President of Product Management and was the founder and architect of Health Cloud, the patient engagement platform for healthcare and life sciences that is based on an innovative patient-first approach. She has more than 15 years of progressive leadership experience in healthcare with both Fortune 500 companies and startups, and has been recognized throughout her career as an authority on creating digital health platforms and helping transform health management and delivery for patients, professionals, and health systems. She has been recognized by Becker's as top health leaders to know. Prior to Salesforce, Rita was Vice President of Product Management and Marketing at Gluco, Director of Global Strategic Marketing at LifeScan, and CEO and co-founder of FoundHealth.com. Rita received her MBA and bachelor's degree from UCLA. Rita, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jasmeet. It's a pleasure to be here.
Rita, I want to start with the change in the mindset that the life sciences industry is witnessing when it comes to companies engaging with their customers. Traditionally, as you know, the industry has been focused on healthcare providers for a very long time. We are now seeing this focus shift towards the end consumer. Why do you think that is, and what is driving this shift?
Well, in the current environment, with the pandemic and consumer expectations on the rise, we know that consumers have higher expectations of everyone in the healthcare and life sciences continuum. When I was at Johnson & Johnson, our focus, as for many pharmaceutical and medical device companies, was education and influencing the HCP, the healthcare professional. In the last 5 years, we've seen a dramatic shift centering on the consumer. Life science companies are now asking, how do you make the healthcare experience look like the consumer experience? And we know that technology has played a huge role in supporting the shift from transactional to collaborative. We've seen that patient and HCP experience management has been on the rise. And we've seen that digital tools and wearables have started to play a bigger role with life science companies to really deliver better onboarding and adherence experiences. And we know that engagement ultimately drives outcomes. So life science companies are now driven to own that relationship and that experience. With medtech companies, they're starting to play a major role in digital transformation of healthcare. And many of them are embracing really large-scale changes in the ways that they operate. Many medtech companies are moving away from simply focusing on devices utilized during surgical procedures towards the bookends of the care continuum. So from prevention, awareness, diagnosis to recovery and rehab at home. So connecting patient engagement data from mobile and wearable devices, the patient care continuum moves from a one-size-fits-all to personalized care journeys. In this value-based care environment, coupled with medtech organizations looking to differentiate and add value beyond the device, this trend is only increasing.
Yes, absolutely, Rita. In some ways, I think we all can relate to it in terms of how differently we are now tracking and managing our health. I believe Salesforce recently conducted a connected healthcare consumer report that focuses on providing insights into what the consumers are expecting from healthcare and life sciences companies. Can you share some of the key findings of the report?
Yeah, we are so excited about sharing this report. The Connected Healthcare Consumer Report was fielded across 6,000 consumers in every major region, North America, Europe, Latin America, and more. It really helps us to understand the consumer mindset, their preferences, and how companies can build trust with the healthcare consumer. From that report, we know that 30% of consumers have communicated directly with a pharmaceutical company in the last year. 95% of consumers expect to be provided good customer support. 91% expect to receive education to get the most from their medication, and equally to receive advice and resources to make sure that they take their medication properly. So we've seen a tremendous rise in patient services being offered by pharma companies to consumers directly with their providers in the equation. In the US, consumers also want to be informed of their offers and rebates by their pharma companies. We're also seeing a rise in portals and apps to support the self-service experience so they can control their own experience. We can call that the multi-channel patient experience. So the report told us a lot. It told us that we're really moving towards consumer centricity, and we understand what the consumer wants and needs and how life science companies can provide that to them.
Thanks for sharing those findings, Rita. They clearly tell us how customer expectations are rapidly evolving, and customer experience, or rather connected experience, has gained a lot of importance. And life sciences companies continue to invest in this area. Now, has COVID played a role in this? What are some of the most significant changes you have seen during the pandemic?
Well, Jasmeet, certainly the pandemic has changed a lot of things for all of us. Interestingly, COVID has created an amazing opportunity for pharma companies to build a trusted relationship with consumers. And so from the Connected Healthcare Consumer Report, we know that only 49% of consumers trust pharma companies. We also know that 93% of pharmaceutical organizations are not using AI for data because of a belief that it's too complex or they're not sure about where to start. We believe with an understanding of using data, life science companies can create personalized and trusted experiences at scale. So today, that is the core of the consumer's ask. For example, life science companies are leveraging CDP, so Salesforce's customer data platform, and incorporating multiple sources of data to build really a 360-degree view of a patient. They then build personalized engagement strategies and care programs tailored to the patient's needs, plus consider similar strategies that have worked with similar patients that have resulted in the best patient outcomes. This gives them the advantage of combining population data with personalized data for optimized personalization of patient engagement by offering the next best action or the most recommended engagement approach for the fastest onboarding, best adherence, and ultimately the best outcomes. The other shift we have seen across healthcare is the shift to virtual care. So in healthcare, we know that telehealth utilization has stabilized today at about 38 times higher than before the pandemic. So big shifts. We've also seen moves from patient support services and clinical trials to move to virtual modes. And so the expansion of care towards the bookends of the care continuum can be best performed virtually and at home. So the days of inconvenient and expensive monitoring in the hospital bed have been replaced by technologies like wearables, mobile apps, and remote monitoring. This has been true of chronic disease management, such as diabetes, asthma, CKD, but it's also extended into end-stage disease treatment, such as dialysis, and upstream to the care continuum, for example, with prevention. So I'll give you an example. Fresenius Medical, which operates 3,700 dialysis centers, made a $2 billion deal to acquire U.S. home dialysis equipment maker NX Stage Medical, while also focusing on early prevention for CKD prior to potentially becoming dialysis patients. In conclusion, we have seen massive shifts due to the pandemic.
And massive shift is the right way to sum it up. I think we can simply relate to how our personal and professional lives have changed during the pandemic. And it becomes easy to understand how healthcare consumer needs are shifting. In fact, as you were talking about telehealth and virtual care, I was trying to think how many times my family has seen a doctor virtually versus in person in the past 2 years. Now,
That's right.
now regarding some of these changes, or I should call them new ways or practices that were initiated due to the pandemic, do you think they will stick around once the pandemic is over?
Well, luckily, I believe many things will stick. So, patient services continue to grow globally. For example, we have several global pharma companies that have expanded into Latin America to provide a level of treatment and access support to patients. We know from the report that 47% of consumers in Brazil say healthcare and life sciences is more focused on industry needs rather than patient needs. But patient services help to address these types of gaps in consumer expectations of life science companies. The other practice that I think will continue is around virtual care and support. As you said, Jasmeet, it has become just the way that we're doing business now. The pandemic removed some consumer and systemic barriers associated with virtual care. The other thing we think is going to stick is really the shift to outpatient care and remote patient monitoring. We know that 1,700 inpatient-only procedures will be phased out by 2024. So medtech organizations will benefit by focusing on pre-op patient visibility, offering knowledge, kitting of specific offerings, patient engagement automation, and the ability to support remote patient monitoring. So these are some of the things that we think will shift and stay shifted as we move into the new era.
Rita, I totally agree with your perspective here. More often, the conversation is about the barriers this pandemic has introduced. But you're absolutely right when you say that the pandemic has actually removed some barriers as well. Now, I want to switch gears a little bit because I can't help but worry about the gap between the consumer expectation and what life sciences companies are able to deliver. Are there specific examples of companies that have been able to bridge this gap and provide an elevated customer experience?
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about what the consumer thinks. 88% of consumers are more loyal to companies that they trust. So trust becomes the highest value that all these companies can achieve. We're seeing some great personalized care journeys, such as programs from medtech companies like Zimmer with its Biomets My Mobility platform, which is demonstrating promising data and showing improved clinical outcomes. It creates a virtual connection between patients and healthcare professionals throughout the joint replacement surgery journey, with the goal of facilitating remote episodes of care management and lowering the overall cost of care. So one great example. We also know that several companies such as Janssen, part of Johnson & Johnson, have ramped up patient services across many of their therapeutics with the intent of providing the right level of support to patients throughout their journey. We're also seeing really innovative mobile apps developed by pharma companies around specific therapeutics that result in powerful self-service and adherence experiences with consumers. So I can see innovation all around, and it's very promising.
Thanks for providing those examples, Rita. Yes, that is very promising and encouraging to see that many companies are already working on this specific problem and bridging the gap. Now, since we're talking about the transition to this new digital, connected, virtual world and the importance of customer excellence, what role does data and analytics play in enabling this customer experience?
Yeah, I think with continuous, simultaneous, and synchronous data coming in, Big data companies can distill this data to start making predictions on disease progression, for instance. Anticipating the next event will then help us to drive the associated actions to prevent them. So in pharma, the rapid shift towards personalized bespoke therapies has raised the importance of pharmacogenomics and better understanding the potential efficacy and side effects for a specific individual based on their own personal genetic biomarkers. So by using this data, we can better identify and screen potential candidates for more inclusive clinical trials or for the most appropriate personalized therapy. In a data-driven healthcare environment, the shift in value has moved from the device to the data itself. So now I'm talking about medical device companies. The devices itself have less and less intrinsic value over time. Data will ultimately become the most valuable product. So the opportunity for medtech organizations is to move outside their traditional comfort zone of manufacturing and selling devices to creating new business models that capitalize on data. Devices are increasingly being designed to include interoperability and secure connectivity. These capabilities will drive medtech companies to be more relevant to support responsive offerings that deliver better interventions and care management. MedTech companies are increasingly focused on dynamic, automated solutions that provide data intelligence to unlock the insights that can be monetized down the line. We know that even consumers are getting into the data game. So 55% of consumers in the UK, based on the report that we've been talking about, the Connected Healthcare Consumer Report, said they would be willing to share their data if it would be used to develop new medications. So data is hugely important in the transformation.
Absolutely. And as you rightly pointed out, it is not about the device, but the data that the device collects. Data is becoming the most valuable product. Rita, as you work with healthcare and life sciences companies, you have a unique vantage point of various players and their offerings. In my last question, I would like to know, what is your view of the value vertical software brings, the software that is built for specific industries like life sciences?
Well, I think increasingly software companies are moving to meet the needs of life science companies. So for example, Salesforce has invested in Health Cloud, which supports specific data models, workflows, and processes for patient services, care coordination, virtual care, and so much more. We are moving beyond the horizontal platforms to made-for-purpose but scalable vertical platforms. I know vertical software players like Axtria have built software based on their deep life science domain expertise. They understand the business processes and operations, so they're able to leverage the right data, analyze it by asking the right questions, and then build the software for specific needs of the life science companies. It's a strong trend in the market that will certainly serve the life sciences and healthcare customers well.
Rita, love your perspective on vertical software. Of course, I'm happy to hear that software players like Axtria are able to bring value to the customers because of their deep domain expertise. Before we go, I would like to summarize our discussion so the audience has some key takeaways. So what I understand is, one, consumer expectations from life sciences companies are on the rise and they're not currently being met. Two, on the bright side, pharma and medtech companies are making efforts to innovate in their ways to connect with patients as consumers. And three, data and applications will facilitate the ability to scale this consumer centricity globally. Is there anything else you would like to add to the summary?
No, that's perfect, Jasmeet. Thank you.
Rita, thanks for sharing your knowledge and expertise in this space. The shift in focus towards consumer, which in the case of the life sciences industry is the patient, is an important topic and something that many leaders are actively thinking about. You provided some fresh perspectives that I'm sure our audience will find valuable. Thank you so much for sharing the insights. It has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you for leading this fantastic discussion.
Absolutely. To the audience, as I always say, you are the most important part of the show. The tremendous success that we are seeing is because of you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and tune in soon for the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on the Life Sciences Leadership Podcast. If you loved this episode, please share with friends and subscribe on your favorite streaming platform. For more information, visit lifesciencespodcast.com. Until next time.